Hey, welcome along to Here's Rodder's Reviews, the show that is going deep on nostalgia as far as 80s and 90s goes at the moment. It's not to say there won't be new stuff on here, but I'm loving the old stuff these days. So we're going to be talking about the Transformers. Again, we've got as far as season 3, and this is episode 2, entitled Five Faces of Darkness, Part 2. And nice to get a little bit of a more concise episode in this one. And the opening episode, with everything that happened in Transformers the movie, there's a lot of explaining and set up where we're at, what we're doing, and setting up things to come. So they're setting up characters to head off and do different things in that opening episode. Just a lot crammed in there. So in this one, more closed and concise. Still a lot going on, not just as much as that first episode. So in this episode, we pick up where we left off after episode 1. Rodimus Prime, Grimlock are spying on the Decepticons to see if they were responsible for the kidnapping of Ultra Magnus Cup and Spike. Obviously they're not, but they were discovered at the end of the last episode. So we open up with the Decepticons in full attack, coming in on Rodimus Prime and Grimlock. But the Decepticons having been beat up after the movie and what happened in that, they don't have a lot of power. Their charge is low on their weapons, so the weapons aren't working. And yes, they're shooting as hard as they can, but no damage to Grimlock or Rodimus Prime. But they decide to, okay, if the weapons don't work, we're just going to walk in there, we're going to pummel them to death. So there's a shootout as far as Rodimus Prime and Grimlock trying to defend themselves with their guns, but the Decepticons are just coming on like a zombie movie. You know, there's something in that little sequence that was just a little bit, I'm not going to say scary, but just a little bit unsettling in the way that it was done. It was just like something that you hadn't seen really in the Transformers at this point. Just the Decepticons having this real hatred. We're going to take these two out and just, you know, we're going to take whatever laser blast they're willing to give us just to kill them, you know. But at the last second, they're saved by a meteor. Turns up in the atmosphere, and you're like, oh, that's pretty random. But it turns out it's the asteroid looking ship that Springer and RC had stolen in the prior episode. So there's a great bit where I think it was Onslaught was standing off in the distance from the Decepticons, and he's one of these Decepticons that speaks in like one of these proper sort of a voice, and he's like, that's fairly I can't recall what the exact words that he said was, but you know, it's not the sort of behaviour you'd expect from an asteroid that just stops dead in the air. But anyway, Rodimus Prime is out cold, and we think he's dead at this point. And a reaction from Grimlock that just felt a little bit out of character. He's almost in tears and crying over Rodimus Prime in this episode. And it felt just kind of out of character for him, because Grimlock was always, even though he's an Autobot, he's a good robot. He always has the outlook of me Grimlock, me king, me not going to take orders unless me want to, sort of a thing. And he was always, you know, between him and Optimus Prime, he was always, you know, not fighting him all the time, but just didn't, you know, have that emotion that he's showing towards Rodimus Prime in this one. It's a bit jarring, really, watching it again. And, you know, at 45 years old, but back in the day, I kind of had the same response to that. But they continue on with that, trying to pull on the heartstrings for Rodimus Prime for a part of the episode where they're trying to revive him, but they lose his spark at one point. Life force disappears completely. And then, out of character again, Grimlock's the one that works out what's going on here. Says he's not dead, because if he was dead, the matrix of leadership would present itself. And We then get a sequence where Rodimus Prime at this point, the reason they can't find any vitals for him is because he's actually travelled inside the Matrix itself. And you get this like nightmare sort of a vision of different faces and places and whatnot. You see Optimus Prime there at a point, then his face explodes and it changes into another Autobot. Eventually, through all these, visions coming up and exploding, you eventually see Quintesson. So Rodimus Prime wakes up and explains what's going on. The Quintessons are behind us. We have to find their home planet, go rescue Ultra Magnus, Cub, and Spike. As they're off to go find the planet, Cyclonus and the Sweeps have left Char after thanking the Decepticons for their donations of Energon to go rescue Galvatron. They do get to the planet and he's in like a plasma bath sort of thing is what he calls it, but it's like a lava bath, and you just see the hand poking out Terminator 2 style. They yank him out and we get our first introduction in the series to Galvatron, who of course, different voice in this one. Like, they weren't going to get Leonard Nimoy to come back for the series. Like, he voiced him in the movie. Fantastic. Brilliant. Did a fantastic voice job on Galvatron. But this voice is so far away from that voice that it's kind of jarring. Now, it is Frank Welker back, who voiced Megatron. But this voice here is... And I can't shake it. Even after all these years, I just don't think it was a good voice for Galvatron. Now, the character that he is in season 3 and 4, it makes sense for that sort of a voice. But I think for me, Frank Welker, fantastic voice actor, but he voiced a ton of characters throughout the 80s and 90s. Even up to this day, he still does voice work. But this voice in particular, it's high-pitched, whereas Galvatron had been very low-pitched. Megatron would have been more evil sounding in it. There's a little bit of insanity in this voice, which makes sense for the character whenever we go through the series and we discover what's going on with Galvatron and his mind. He is insane. I'm just going to put it out there now. He's not in control whatsoever for most of this series. But the voice is very, very close. I was a big fan of the real Ghostbusters back in the 80s as well. One of my big loves next to the Transformers was the real Ghostbusters. The voice of Ray Stantz and Ghostbusters is not a kick in the backside away from the voice of Galvatron in season 3 of the Transformers. So now that I've said that, if you haven't made that connection before, if you're watching season 3 of Transformers now, you're going to pick out Ray Stantz's voice quite a bit throughout the series. It is what it is. Voice actors, they do multiple roles. Even within the same episode, you'll have the same character or the same actor doing different characters. Like, Frank Welker was Megatron, Soundwave, I think, at the same time. When you had Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime, but he was also Ironhide as well. Anyway, that's a bit of a tangent, but in the episode they get him out. He's insane and he pretty much just turns on Cyclonus, Scourge and the Sweeps and starts fighting them on the spot, and he doesn't stop until Scourge actually pretty much worships him. Let's just say, I've learned my lesson, you're the strongest Decepticon ever, blah blah blah, whatnot. And he turns then and tells him, okay, let's go, we've got a universe to conquer, more or less. But he does also say that because he's been in these plasma baths for so long, he's stronger now than he ever was. So whenever they're leaving the planet, he actually takes the time, well, when I say planet, It's nothing more than a big asteroid. I wouldn't say it was a planet, even though they would call it a planet within the universe. He takes the time to transform in space into cannon form and blasts the whole place to shreds. So he, as far as strength and power goes, he has the strongest of the Decepticons at this point. So off they go, heading back towards Char. Back on Quintessa, the Quintessons are questioning Cup about Cybertron, its defences, all that sort of thing. They're trying to work out an attack plan against Cybertron. They're very analytical. Cup is trying to throw them off whenever he answers them, but they just, like, they work out probabilities. Every time somebody says something, the probability of this being true or false is such and such. In the cells, you've got Ultra Magnus and Spike in there, and Ultra Magnus is like, it's almost as if they can read our thoughts. And Spike comments, they're not too quick at questioning me. Maybe they can read your thoughts, but maybe they can't read mine. So you do find out that the Quintessons are questioning Spike and humans in general of having that, way of feeling things that they can't really work with. So they're curious to see how he's going to react to interrogations and eventually what it's going to take to kill him, more or less. So they're insane. They love to throw people into this pit of Sharkticons and just watch them getting torn to shreds. But they do say at one point that the hatred that they have towards the Autobots, and Rodimus Prime says it at one point, the actions that happened on Quintessa during Transformers the movie, they were put on trial, sentenced to death, but they never discovered what their crimes were to be put on trial in the first place. And in this episode, the Quintessons, talking about Cybertron defences and whatnot, they do say that the Autobots are guilty of theft. So this is your first inkling that the Quintessons are very much connected to Cybertron and the Transformers. And spoilers, you do eventually discover that the Quintessons were the ones that were responsible for Cybertron and the creation of the Autobots and the Decepticons, but that's to come a long way down the line, I think. Probably the next episode now that I've said that. So the Autobots need to escape now, and of course Rodimus Prime knows what's going on. He's on his way to help. They sacrifice the asteroid ship, or the meteor ship, whatever you want to call it, to divert the Quintessons' attention so they can rescue Ultra Magnus, Cup and Spike from the Sharkticon pit. They've also put on a call to Cybertron for reinforcements. One thing that I did leave out there was when they were sentenced to death once again, they had grabbed hold of a Quintesson and a failed escape attempt to try and bargain for their lives, but the Quintessons sentence him to death as well, and him being as fatalistic as the rest of them, just accepts it and he gets dropped into the pool with them. So when the escape does happen, Springer comes down in helicopter form, grabs hold of Ultra Magnus and the rest of them. Ultra Magnus is carrying the Quintesson with him, so they get on to a rescue ship and escape. The aerial bots have shown up and one of their star cruisers rescue them. They get to the ship, and the last moments before the planet explodes at the end of it, the Quintessons have decided, okay, right, the leader's here, the Matrix is with him, we want to take the Matrix out as well. So they're trapped on the planet. They set off a core bomb to destroy the planet, but while that's going on, they're escaping on their ship. The Autobots have been rescued on their own ship, and both forces get off just at the last second before it explodes, and that's where we close out episode 2 of this opening story. The thing that I would say about that is, I would have thought it would have been a better idea to not have shown like, it's the Transformers, you know the Autobots are going to escape, but they actually show it happening at those moments of this episode. I think it was a little bit of a misstep there. If they had have shown the explosion at the end of it, but then in the opening moments of the next episode show that the Autobots actually got out before the explosion, might have went down a little bit better. So it is what it is. Everybody is now pretty much in place. It took 2 episodes to get everything in order after the movie, but a lot going on in those 2 opening episodes, not as much as the first one. But the introduction to Galvatron here is an interesting one. But I'll delve into it more as we go through the series. But for me, the character of Galvatron, even though he looks a lot cooler than Megatron, the fact that he can transform into a cannon, doesn't have to depend on someone holding him to shoot him, as Megatron was a handheld gun, more or less. But there was reasons for that as well. But the mentality and the character of Megatron was far, far better than Galvatron ever was. I'll delve into that in major detail whenever the subject comes up, because it does get tackled in a big way as far as the psychological side of Galvatron goes within this series. So as they're going through this, they're also dealing with everything that happened in Transformers the movie and the implications of all that sort of stuff as well. So they tried to expand the universe, and for me, I'm just going to put it out in Front Street here, like, I think they failed in a big bad way whenever they made the decision they made with Transformers the movie. I said it in the review as well, important movie, but it was the blow of taking away those original core characters from season 1 and season 2, just for the sake of bringing in new characters for a new toy line, was a blow to the franchise that it never properly got over in the 80s. It was the franchise up until Transformers the movie was an absolute juggernaut, but after Transformers the movie, it just wasn't the same and I can't speak for sales of the characters. Like standing here talking about Transformers, 40 years after the fact at this point, Transformers is still here, it's still selling and whatnot, but yeah, it went through a lot of variations between season 3 and 4. I think the Japanese bought it back after season 4, so it didn't survive in the market it was in at that point. It went back to Japan for a lot of years before it came back for live action and whatnot. So yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. I kind of prattled on for a good bit there, so hopefully you're still here at the end of this episode. If you are, please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that like button, share the video along, and if you're listening to the podcast, love ye. And until the next episode, stay safe, and I'll talk to you all then.